What makes us feel wealthy is cash flow. Every stage of the journey, people feel isolation. When you're building your business for the first time, you feel isolated because you're just in the weeds. You're working 18 hours a day, struggling to make things happen. You start having success. None of your friends understand why when your business is making $1 million a year, you still are stressed about money. Like, how could that be the case? And least of all do people understand when you've had 7, 8, 9-figure exits, how you could still have insecurity around money. It's very isolating throughout that journey, and isolation takes us away from our power. And so finding a way to make that more commonplace and say, yeah, these are real things. And so the concept though is that cash flow makes you feel wealthy, and being aware of that I think is really key because that changes the game.
Hi, this is JP Newman on Investing on Purpose, and today I have Sam Prentice, my dear friend of 10 years. It started him selling me my first insurance policy 10 years ago. It's turned into this incredible friendship. And a lot of times you guys hear me speak on the podcast, like, what's the end goal here for 4-dimensional wealth? It's to wake up happy, go to sleep peacefully. And that sounds great. So one of the 4 cores, obviously, of 4-dimensional wealth is getting your investments in order. And Sam, I have to say, out of anyone I've met, there's very few people who are good at many things at once. Some people are good at tax. Some people are good at asset management. Some people are good at investments. Some people are good at insurance. But you really have been my quarterback. This friendship that started out as a complicated insurance policy has turned into a friendship. But you are probably in my short list of 3 or 4 people that I would turn to for really complex things that I'm trying to sort through so that I can go to sleep peacefully and wake up happy. And so having you here as Wealth CEO, I know you do this for a living. For many people, you've told me many $100 million plus clients. And the problems they have, guess what? It sounds like they have some of the same problems that we have, which we'll share. So I just wanted to welcome you to the show, and it's just such a gift to have you here. And I think for those listening today, it's so easy to say that statement, just once you have money, this is how you can be happy. But the truth is, even good investments, if you crack good investments, if you crack the code of all the asset protection, have you created peace of mind? And how do you create peace of mind? So I know you guys have heard me talk about this, but I think with Sam, we're going to really go deep today into how do you create peace? How do you do it? How do you create sound investments? And then how do you create the peace of mind and the mindset? Because without the mindset, you got nothing.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to get this all right, which has taken me years, I'm probably still a student. I'm pretty good at it at this point. It still takes a while to cultivate the mindset. You know what I mean?
I do. And I love that one. First, thank you for the introduction.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to the work that has been done, some of which you kind of brought to my life, to be able to sit here and receive such kind words. Because I actually I receive them, feel them. So thank you for that. I really do.
Yeah.
And no, this is so important to me because I watch so many amazing humans who are meant to be creators, who are taken out of their zone of creation because of some very simple, small mindset tweaks that aren't there. And one of the biggest things is just in general, whether it's a strategic decision, a tactical one, or kind of more of an emotional one, is not setting the goalpost of what a win looks like. So you have a lot of people who don't feel successful. And that is because we very rarely define what success looks like. Success in life, I think we can, just like you mentioned there before, I remember sitting and having this conversation with you 6-8 months ago. And it was as this concept was just becoming really fresh to me. And it was the idea that in life, everyone works their way to be at a spot where they're able to wake up in the morning happily, be present during the day, and go to bed at night peacefully. If you're doing those 3 things, then you are successful and you're winning. And if those things are not happening on a consistent basis, we want to start looking for what are the roadblocks that are keeping us from that. And
I love that, by the way. That is so simple, yet so powerful.
Yes. And there was a point in time when you first met me, I think you mentioned before that it was a complicated insurance policy. So to be honest, it was complicated because you had a 23 or 24-year-old who thought that big words and lots of things made him sound smart. And so we learned how to just, confuse or distract from the main point of what we're getting to with lots of big concepts. In reality, most of the things that make us feel the way we want to and accomplish big things are not complicated. They are simple, they're direct, they're deliberate. When you do those smart and deliberate things over and over again, you create some really insane results.
Yeah.
And so this has been a really fun journey for me as I've grown and transitioned over time. And you've been so influential in that. I hope you know what a privilege it is to be able to come back here and just share another phase of that journey with you. It actually is, cool. I was thinking about that this morning, just how excited I was. Like, and sometimes when I go record content, I have this concern of like making sure I'll get through all of my concepts with this. I just know there's such an amazing flow from the way we've been able to share so many cool points of life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the key, is defining the goal. If the listeners could hear any one thing, defining what your goal is lets you feel successful. And that's how we get ourselves back into a state of flow and into the state of creation, which is important.
And I think that one of the problems with defining a goal that I've seen through my podcast or people that I met is, I think most people, if you ask them what's your financial goal, they're going to come up with a number. I want to be worth 5 million.
Right.
I want to do 10 million in sales. It's usually a number. But then the second question I'll ask them is, so why that number? And then it quickly falls apart. And it's like, you realize that it's you've set an arbitrary goalpost, usually one that's hard to achieve. And then so now you're chasing it, what you think is your goal, 5 million or a big house or whatever you think. I'm gonna have a big boat or plane, but there's not really a lot of why behind, like purpose behind it. So that when you achieve it, like all of a sudden, what happens to most people, they don't achieve it and feel like a disappointment, or they do achieve it and they feel like it's an empty victory because it never was grounded on anything rich.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's hedonic adaptation. We think this is what's really going to get us there. And you get to that point and now it's the next new thing. We're always trying to up level. And that optimizer part, like everyone should get a relationship with the part of themselves that wants to optimize. That's great. But it can be a really damaging part when you don't have a clear goal in mind. So in reality, I think most people are honestly driven by, I call it the growth or the transition phase for entrepreneurs and for investors that they go through. There's 3 stages you kind of have to work through, and they come in sequential order. You have to advance from one to the next before you can get to the third. And it's security to lifestyle to impact. It's really difficult to be a creator in your impact, your impact archetype, to be impacting the world when you're not able to feel secure. And that security, sometimes it needs to be sourced from better tactics. Sometimes it has to be sourced from different mindset. I think we're able to delve into both of those and give some really clear ways to do it. But I'll tell you, story time is I had a client who exited for $20 million. So life-changing money. At that point in time, he lived on maybe $400,000 a year comfortably. And so as you know, invest in $20 million, even especially with our tax plays that we brought that tax burden down to sub 7 figures. With that, you can easily create security. But if you don't feel secure, it doesn't matter. And in this case, the concept I want to put out there to the world, and I think is really important, is that what makes us feel wealthy is cash flow. Cash flow is what makes you feel wealthy. And so the day he transitioned from having a business that cash flowed to a business that put $20 million in his bank account, he started to feel poor the next day when it became $19,999,950. And I know this because 2 weeks after his exit, he called me and said, Sam, I have this weird situation. This is a testament to the work that's been done, because 4 years ago, Sam couldn't have had this conversation. But he calls and says, Sam, I'm triggered. He said, my nervous system is elevated, which I just love that I have clients that talk this way.
That's great.
You can tell we've gone down the road, JP, like all this work. And so he says, my nervous system was activated. I was triggered. He's like, I went there to buy sandals. He said, I was paying $50 for sandals that I knew should have cost me $30. And my heart was racing. He's like, and I was sitting here and I'm like,
wow,
I'm angry with myself. He's like, I just sold for $20 million and I'm sitting here triggered about buying $50 sandals. He's like, I need to know why. Talk to me. I was like, well, this is why we have a retainer. So,
wow.
So we spent 30 minutes or less now. Honestly, we spent probably 10 minutes explaining that and walking through it. He gets to go repattern in that like one micro moment that just has a wonderful effect going forward. And then we have, a little bit of time to just visit after that. But basically that kind of moment, I think, is more prevalent. And the thing is, it's hard to talk about because at every stage of the journey, people feel isolation. Yeah. When you're building your business for the first time, you feel isolated because you're just in the weeds. You're working 18 hours a day, struggling to make things happen. You start having success. None of your friends understand why, when your business is making $1 million a year, you still are stressed about money. Like, how could that be the case? And least of all, do people understand when you've had 7, 8, 9-figure exits, how you could still have insecurity around money. It's very isolating throughout that journey, and isolation takes us away from our power.
Yeah.
And so finding a way to make that more commonplace and say, yeah, these are real things. And so the concept, though, is that cash flow makes you feel wealthy, and being aware of that, I think, is really key, because that changes the game.
Another thing, besides cash flow, I agree with you about cash flow completely. Also, it's mindset. Because I can tell you lately, Sam, for me, I felt for years that I really had gotten over that scarcity and over that fear. And then in this real estate market, when there's been a couple hits and a couple responsibilities, I feel that little flash again, feelings I haven't had for many years, quite frankly, of that fear, dread. Do I have enough? Like things that I haven't thought about in a long time. It's amazing that even when you think you conquer them, what I'm realizing is that mindset's an ongoing practice. Like you don't just conquer this.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
It is.
It's a practice. And I promise for most people, it's probably a practice the rest of your life.
It is.
So you don't get in that circle of I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. Because I'm doing the cash flow game pretty well these days, right? Like you've helped me with this. I've got you're pretty good. You know,
confirm.
You know my balance. You know my balance sheet, and yet it still comes up. So I so agree with you. It's the things and it's the mindset.
I'll go one further on this because I love this. The additional piece there is the mindset. The reflection from other humans around you is how you're able to interrupt those loops. Because the loop that's there is this all this dread and those things happens all when it stays internally when you're isolated. When you're able to have these conversations and get good reflection, it's amazing what 8 minutes of conversation will do for you when you are in that state. And so having good quality reflection in place where you're able to have this level of intimacy around such a taboo topic of finance is actually really, really healthy. And it takes entrepreneurs away from getting out of their state of creativity, puts them back into it.
So let's do it right now. Let's do a 1 minute version.
Done.
Since we don't
I love this. This is great.
Right. So let's just do this. Okay. So here I am. I'm having these feelings. You know, I've had some real estate challenges that popped up. I haven't raised money now for 2 years. I'm about to start raising money again soon. It's I'm a little out of practice.
Yeah.
We all know the real estate market's been tough, and yet obviously I'm in a solid financial situation, and yet these like little doubts of certainty even come up for me, which surprises me. It's actually like, seriously, at this point, do I really have to deal with this? As my friend, how would you recommend that I navigate that mindset? How do I elevate from when I'm feeling this, when I'm in a body of fear? Where would you direct me to go to go to a better mindset? Like what would be your cheat sheet?
First off, I would go and I'd address the actual areas that are concerned and give them a voice, because pretending like they aren't there isn't helpful. So number one, concern is you're going to raise capital the first time in 2 years. The market's changed. The environment's different. So you have all those thoughts because you're not having these fears. The fear isn't there because you're stupid.
Right.
The fear is there because you're highly intelligent and you're very aware. So you look at them and say like, it's built with a little tiny bit of truth, which is where all fear comes from. So the fear, when you take away its power by walking through the actual and giving it a voice. So the voice the fear wants you to hear is, what if the market's changed and you can no longer raise capital? Like, what if, that's one piece.
Yeah, definitely.
What if, you have, a failure on your record from the last, 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
Will people only focus on that? Will that affect your reputation and those sort of things? Do you want to do these things? Because energetically, you don't need to do these things. You are deciding, is this part of like your life purpose? There's a bigger piece behind that. The fear is like, am I pulling myself by saying yes to this? Am I pulling myself away from saying bigger yeses to others? And so it wouldn't be helpful to you to invalidate all of those thoughts and say, well, ignore this, move on because you're successful, you're this and those things. You want to give those fears a voice and see if in there's any element of truth that you want to take forward going in. Once you put it on the table though, and you treat this almost like your fear is presenting its case and then your purpose is presenting its case. When those two things get to present their cases, then you can come up with a really clear decision that you can both feel and you can know. So your brain and your heart connect. And when you have that, there's something about like your brain, your heart, your intuition connecting. It's into it. I forget the whole idea, but there's a whole thing when you connect those things together.
Brain heart coherence.
Something like, yeah, exactly. So
now, Sammy, you just voicing that fear for me just now already neutralized some energy in me like that quickly.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? This is where the reflection is. And then I'd go one step further. So now you feel that. So then we'd go into each one. We'd say, okay, well, let's hear a different perspective because the story you have is, let's just say, for example, I don't know in this case, but let's say that one of your deals, you would propose that it would do X. And then, 2020 happened through 2024, which was not a great time for the capital markets. Doesn't matter if you're in e-commerce, commercial real estate, there were a lot of headwinds. We went through a rapidly interest rate environment. It wasn't good for insurance for that matter, honestly. Like you had interest rate inversion because you're borrowing here and the borrowing costs shot up really quickly. There were lots of moving parts where things changed quickly. So in that light though, so the frame you might say is all people will see is my failure. And that's one thought. And it's like, how will I raise capital when I've had this? When in reality, the truth is during this time, do you have any idea how many billions? I had to have this conversation with my partner in the e-commerce fund. Last year, there were billions and billions of dollars that were wiped off the map entirely because these companies went through the headwinds and the e-commerce industry took a massive hit. How many of your connections have had massive hits in the commercial real estate world? Yeah. Significant. And so you look at that and say, like, in that light, in that time frame, your percentage of success has been ridiculously excellent. Like in our case, we doubled last year in a market when half the aggregators went under.
Yeah.
And so like you look at it and you put those frames on it, it's easy to focus on the negative things because that's what we do. We tend to gravitate towards the things that provide us pain because we can control the pain we want to control. So we think about it, ruminate on it, and we live in micro pain as opposed to facing the fear up front and then having an outside perspective brought to it. And so when you do those things, it's amazing. Like, I don't know, half the stuff, the tactics, we'll get into tactics, but I can probably do tactics on people's balance sheets 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The change in the relationship with money and taxes and all those things, and the way that you feel about these things, these conversations, these unlock the necessary impediments to being able to jump back into your state of creator or state of creation, which is the state we're meant to be in humans. Humans are, whether you believe in God or not, we're meant to be creators. Humanity was created. We are meant to be in that image and we're meant to create. So,
this is so powerful and it seems so obvious and yet it's never talked about. In fact, this is the first conversation I've had about this on any of my podcast shows. This is the first time we've even put this in this kind of framework.
Yeah.
That we're all here to be creators, but you have to feel safe first. I think what you said is, just to recap, security is paramount. When you get to security, then you get to go not to creativity. What's in between creativity and
lifestyle?
Lifestyle. Yeah. So you get to go from your mind. So you get to go from you feel safe.
Yeah.
You get to your lifestyle. From lifestyle, you get to go to creator, which is ultimately. Would you call it servant leadership or just whatever that is to you, whatever creativity or manifesting?
Yeah, I call it impact. So it's kind of the impact is the last stage. When you're in your state of impact, and different people are called to different impacts. I mean, people like yourself, your impact, and this is not a praise session, but it's one that your impact has been very broad. You're called to a large amount of impact. And so in that light, you may be called to more impact. Another person may be called to impact their family. You may be called to impact your family. You may be called to impact a community of 500, 5,000 worldwide. Whatever your call is, being in that state where you are in flow when you're in impact is really important.
Yeah. I know that when I'm in that state of impact and that flow, which I call servant leadership is what I've been calling
that
it.
Makes sense.
I'm at my happiest. I can just tell you, I'm the most relaxed. I'm at my happiest. And then to your point about, waking up happy, living my days present and going to sleep peacefully. I'm fortunate I have many of those days, but I think it's driven by the energy of that servant leadership.
Yeah.
Like I never know what my day is going to bring me. So instead of certainly there's some drive in my day and certain goals in my day. A lot of it's the magic in between.
Yeah.
But that's taken many years to create that, like in my body, in my energy, in my adrenals, and the whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't want to get away from getting to tactics at some point, but I do want to just tap on that for a second because this has been something that's been really present for me, and it actually is a big tie into how our story started and the way that we've just interacted over time. Is one of the concepts, actually, I'm going to get my first tattoo at some point. It's the whole
Plus,
thing.
you don't want to date on there because that could get really bad too. So what are you thinking? Let's hear.
So this is what, and I won't go into all three because I have a way to put all three concepts into one. But the one is points of intersection. So in my life, one of the ways I grew up, and I think a lot of us interact, is that you don't have intersection between different areas of your life. Your money doesn't intersect with your spiritual growth. Your spiritual growth doesn't intersect with your fun, and your pleasure doesn't intersect with your business. And all these things stay separate. I don't have time for that because I'm a very social person. I very much enjoy my relationships. I don't have time to have 5 buckets of connection.
Correct.
I need to merge them together. And I actually had this realization after spending time with you at a birthday party. But so basically what this was is I recognized that in our friendship, for example, it's spanned the time frame where you've invested with me, I've invested with you. We've had spiritual growth together. We've been supportive to each other. We've helped each other with our business, financial, spiritual, even physical health across the board. You brought me to some modalities for healing that were incredibly impactful. The reason I'm able to have the conversation with you today in the way that I'm able to have the conversations with other clients is because of this massive point of intersection. And as I walked out of a birthday party for one of our mutual friends, it was a leather and lace party.
Nice. I remember that party.
I thought you might. So it was so much fun. And just this really unique, fun environment to be able to share all these kinds of spaces. Then you walk out and then you're done. You're thinking, wow, what a point of intersection I was able to share with you. As I was able to share 5 points of incredibly impactful intersection. And I recognized that I have that. You're one of the most extreme examples because there's a decade of history and I didn't know what I was doing along the way. But especially in the last 3 years, I've been very intentional about finding that. And that's why this whole, when it comes to getting entrepreneurs in their state of creativity, finding your community and the people that you create your community where you are very intentional about finding those massive points of intersection where you can interact. It is a very securing feeling. It's a very empowering feeling. And it makes it easy to have that group hold the elasticity for when you have a pull away from your creativity and your flow state, they can help pull you back in. So when you have these thoughts, you having that community allows you to be pulled back in. So that points of intersection has been a really big thing for me that
I talk about it. We share this because in four-dimensional wealth, community is one of the pillars. There's your currency, there's your community, there's your passion, your why, and there's owning your time. But community, to your point, like we're saying the same thing. You use points of intersection, four-dimensional. I think we both share that, like, wealth, if you think money is wealth and you don't have the intersection of those other things, the community, the purpose, someone to hold you accountable, the servant leadership, the impact, it's going to be a very hollow victory. Absolutely. And I think you and I both have realized you've been around money all your life, and you've been given this amazing brain. So you've just consulted so many clients. I feel like a financial psychologist. As a syndicator, I'm going to guess we've had 500 or 600 clients here. So like the idea is that people's biggest pains in their life are their broken heart over a love affair and broken heart over money. Right. So you and I,
it's so true.
You and I have seen some blue stories. So I think after all the stories and doing this long enough, you kind of see and then you see people who've had none of that and they're still broken. And you're like, why? And these are some of the reasons why.
Absolutely.
Hey, can we jump a little bit into tactics?
That was perfect timing. We hit all the heart. Let's get into it.
Okay. So tell me, Sam, so it's easy for me to say, and I really could use your help here. Like, I've got all kinds of tactics. You've actually helped me on a couple recent presentations that I've done where you talk about this wealth pyramid. If you want to talk about the wealth pyramid a bit, what that means to you, the concept of cash flow, and the buckets of allocations. Those two concepts have radically changed the way I personally manage my own money. Can you talk about that?
I can. Tactics? Yeah. I'll start with the buckets. And it's funny because as we transition from kind of like being in the heart into the brain, one day I remember very distinctly is kind of what brought, just clarity to me is one day you called me and you were actually frustrated, I think would be a good way to describe it. And you said, Sam, I'm sitting here and I have all these moves to make and no one will just tell me what to do.
I remember that.
And I was like, it was healthy for me.
Tell me what to do.
Because like I have no relationship with anger at all. Like anger for me, I have no relationship with that emotion. And so getting a chance to like watch, like, yeah, this actually makes sense. This is healthy. I would be frustrated too. So getting to that point, like recognizing how helpful it is to just have some direction of what do you do next and get clarity. And when you start working way backwards from here's what a win looks like, we can just work our way back so easily because these things don't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
So the wealth pyramid is basically, this is a wealth management. And again, back to 23, 24-year-old Sam, had a long way to say this. I could have sat here for 10 hours and you could have left. I could have talked to this wall about the podcast and all. We're going to make it simple. This can be done in about 5 minutes. You take your wealth and you break it into a wealth pyramid. It's like a food pyramid. At the bottom, you have liquidity. Liquidity can be held in like, right now, high yield savings accounts pay 4 to 5%. You can hold it in life insurance. You can hold it in anything that is not cyclical with the way that it returns. So by having a asset that's not exposed to the market cycles, it's going to be there when you need it.
Wasn't your definition also, Sam, if I remember, that you could redeem it for cash within
72 hours to 1 week? Like there's like different layers, but the idea is
it's redeemable for cash quickly.
That's
a really good way to define whether you're in a liquid asset.
Highly accessible, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're not really concerned on that piece from a tax standpoint. Return is the lower concern. The main concern is safety. You're not going to lose in a down market, and you're concerned with accessibility because that allows you to mitigate risk and it allows you to take advantage of opportunities. So we want to always have liquidity at the base. And then the next asset class is cash flow. Cash flow can be done through a variety of things. Real estate is obviously a major driver in that because it's one of the greatest ways to build wealth. Long-term debts where you like are the lender. You can do this through high yield like dividend paying stocks, things of that nature. So these are all cash flow related assets. Then the last part of the bucket is speculation. Those are your 3 things. And what you do is you make sure, because cash flow is what makes us feel wealthy. The goal is that we are going to, as we add cash flow and assets, so say we go buy a rental property, you're going to also increase your liquidity because liquidity is how you mitigate risk. The people who we buy our cash flow from is during down markets. You go buy your competitors' properties because they did not budget properly and did not have sufficient liquidity to weather the storm.
Correct.
When they go through those challenges, you have tightened your belt. You tighten your belt, you say, everybody, hey, listen, we're going to work hard for 2 years. We're going to make a lot of money. Then I'm going to take really good care of my team, which you've done for, I think, through a few market cycles. Because during those times, it's hard. But when you're able to tighten your belt and be liquid, you buy with a significantly reduced risk profile, by understanding how to get yourself outside of the market cycles. You can be an idiot and buy property in 2009 and do really, really well.
Correct.
Because you have to be a lot smarter to do what you did and buy property in 2019 and do well.
Yeah.
So to have 80, I mean, back to your problem earlier, have 80% of your properties, 90% of your properties, or whatever percentage it is, do well in that time frame is only a testament to acumen. Anyone in 2009, 90% of people across the board. Yeah. It's like I am the greatest real estate buyer alive.
I know.
If I buy in 2009. Yeah. And
so many people got twice and 3 times as big as me, and now they're out of business. And I've been fortunate. I've had some friends and investors lose significant amount of money.
Yep. It is true. And there's all we could, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. But that is the principle that was simple. When you do this at a micro level on your balance sheet, it is so freeing and so satisfying as you give yourself the gift of saying, how much do I need to get in those 3 stages for me to feel secure, for me to operate my lifestyle at its peak, and for me to feel impactful? What dollar amount do I need for each?
Correct.
So that's very simple. I sit down and say, I live comfortably on $250,000 a year. I don't feel insecure. Great. Give yourself the gift of that being your top priority. And you say, to do that, I need $3 million to work with. I go put, $2.5 million in 8% real estate, or $3 million in 8% real estate. And I'm able to go generate the cash flow that I need. And maybe you need $4 million to have some cushion and on either side, the liquidity and speculation. But you can do this very quickly. Create a wealth pyramid that gives you the security you need to be able to go know that no matter what, you're not going to be broke because you have a risk mitigated, diversified portfolio of consistent cash flow. And that's going to make you feel wealthy, make you feel secure, and give you the permission to start doing the next phase. Build some lifestyle. Now you go take another $500,000, $1 million, and you buy your bucket that lets you start paying for your trips, your travel, to bring your friends, to buy your boat, whatever is your thing that gives you the lifestyle that says, I now get it. I now have tools to get in flow. Because sometimes entrepreneurs, JP, what I've learned is entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, they have to be talked into having fun, which to me is a little foreign.
It's true. I've seen this. I know what you're saying.
It's funny because you know this. So for me, I have to meet them where they're at. And so we say, okay, hey, listen, when you want to grow your business bigger, because of course that's the only thing that's important, your emotions, your health, your family, all those things, nothing's as important as your business. I get that. We just give them a wink, wink. It's got to meet them where they're at. So it says nothing's as important as that. But what if, like, when you're in flow, do you feel like you accomplish more in your business? Like, oh yeah, I do. I said, well, do you ever by any chance leave your state of flow? Like, oh yeah, all the time. Like, oh, so what if every time you left your state of flow, you had a tool where you could just jump yourself back in within 3 hours? Like, oh, that'd be amazing. I said, okay, so what are some activities that put you in flow? You know what they never say? They never say, I go jump in my spreadsheets and ruminate on my problems. Right. So they say, man, I just feel so good when I go out here and I bike. Or I feel so good when, like for me, I play volleyball. Or I feel so good when I go drive this car, or when I get on the boat, or these things, or whatever it is that, or when I have these really great conversations. Whatever it is, you give yourself the gift of saying, I'm going to spend some money so that I have tools. So anytime I'm out of flow, I can put pause on all the stuff I'm doing terrible at. I can go do something that makes it fun. I get in have that flow carries over. It doesn't just go away the second I walk back in my office. It carries over. I can solve problems like a freight train going through a brick wall. So you have to work it into that. So we get a little fun budget to make sure that lifestyle actually contributes to our ability to get into impact.